don't cruise ship employees save a lot of money? One of the reasons I wanted to work on a cruise ship was because all the research I had done and anyone I had talked to who had done it before said that there's a lot of money to be made, or people who work on cruise ships make all this money, and it's, money, money, money. And I feel like when I actually started working on cruise ships, I had to kind of adjust how I thought about money, or I had to adjust what I thought a lot of money meant. I had to kind of change my perspective. Some people on cruise ships do make a lot of money. Kind of depends on, obviously, your department and your job, or your rank, the amount of stripes you have. Like the captain will make a lot of money, but he or she has been doing it for like 20 or 30 years, and they started at the bottom, and they literally have been like, every rung of the ladder. I mean, they've kind of earned that kind of place. But for someone like me, I've never worked on a cruise ship before, and it was particularly the position I had as a broadcast technician. I didn't really have a lot of experience in that field. I studied it in school, but I didn't have a lot of job experience. That position was kind of down on the lower tier when it comes to the amount of money you get paid, at least in the entertainment department. Now, when you're working on a cruise ship, and if one of the reasons you're going is because you want to save money, for me, I saved a lot of money. I saved about $10,000 per contract. So that's in 6 months. I saved about $10,000 every contract, more or less. When I decided to finish working on ships, the first thing I purchased was a car back home in North Carolina. I saved a lot of money, but the way you go about it is a very important factor in saving money working on cruise ships. The first thing you have to realize is different departments have different jobs, and different jobs have different amount of money they pay. And once you start working on a cruise ship, you'll start noticing that particular departments and particular positions and particular as an American, I was one of there are few Americans on cruise ships, compared to like for instance, the ships I worked on, we had about 70% Filipino crew members. That is just culturally, working on cruise ships is something that's what they do. So there's many more Filipinos on the cruise ships than, let's say, Americans or Australians, or more Western culture, stuff like that. So obviously, with different cultures comes the different idea of money. These cruise ships, they pay in U.S. currency. So if you think about it that way, the money I make every month is U.S. dollars. So I know what that means. My first partner on my first ship was from Brazil, and we made the same salary, but while we were on board, the Brazilian currency dropped to about a third of value as a U.S. dollar. So, you could think about it. He was actually making 3 times the salary I was after he, took the U.S. currency and traded it in for Brazilian currency. You see what I'm saying? So it's relative. It's it depends on the currency. And so for me, honestly, it didn't seem like a lot of money to me. I was literally working at a restaurant part-time before I got the job on the cruise ship, and I made dollar for dollar more dollars working part-time at a restaurant in Charlotte, North Carolina, than I did working on the cruise ship. But the way I was able to save money, I had no bills. I had no expenses. I had no expenditures while I worked on the cruise ship. That's the key. when I got hired for Norwegian, I moved out of my apartment. I moved all my stuff to my parents' basement, which they weren't charging me for storage. My car was paid off. Some people sell their car. I didn't want to sell my car because I didn't know how long I wanted to work on cruise ships. Fortunately, I could leave my car in my parents' driveway, and I had no bills. I had absolutely no bills, so I was spending no money while I was on the cruise ship. If you have a storage unit and you have to pay every month, there goes some of your salary. If you have family to support and you're sending money home, I mean, obviously that's money you're sending home, so you're not going to have it for yourself, so you're not going to save that. So for me, the key to the amount of money I saved was based on, I made sure I had zero expenses. I had no payments of any kind while I was working on board, and that allowed me to save, $10,000 every once in a while. Now, also as an American, I had taxes taken out of my paycheck, just like any other job. Non-Americans, I don't actually know how that works. They're not getting taxes taken out from the U.S. because they're not U.S. citizens. So if they're not getting taxes taken out, they're pocketing that much more money. So it's almost like it's not people who work on cruise ships don't make a lot of money. People on cruise ships have the opportunity to save a lot of money if they decide to not have payments. If you have a house and a mortgage, or you're paying child support or something, no. Honestly, to be honest, if I had any expense, if I had a car payment, if I had a mortgage, if I had anything like this, any outstanding payment I had to keep up with, sometimes I would feel that working on a cruise ship would actually hinder those payments, because trying to get online and send the payments and do all that, it's complicated, it's hard to do sometimes. So it was almost like if I had any reason to not work on a cruise ship, financially at least, I wouldn't have done it, because it would have been way more inconvenient than to just keep my job at the restaurant making more money, money for money. But, I was saving a lot of money because I didn't have any expenses. So that's just something you have to think about. I had a motorcycle. I ended up selling it before my second contract because it was just sitting in the basement gathering dust, and, it was pointless to keep, So a lot of people will sell their furniture, you sell, kind of like when you move from apartment to apartment, to a new state or something, you'd sell stuff you don't need, stuff like that. You're jumping into a new life, so it's all about how you go about doing it. There's a lot of money that can be saved, even if you have a small salary, if your life back home, if you figured it out to where you don't have to pay anything back home, no car insurance, stuff like that. Those are the things that add up to where your smaller pay on a cruise ship, even though you don't have to spend money for room and board, those payments will add up, and your salary gets a lot smaller. The entertainment department on cruise ships, at least in what I've seen, tends to be more salary driven. And so I would say you get paid, at least starting out, you get paid a little bit more than other departments. However, the restaurant staff who work in the restaurants, they get tips, so their salary is smaller, but they potentially can make more money per month than I, and I'm sure a lot of them had. Bartenders, same thing. They're making tips. If they're working 10, 12 hours a day, for 9 months, getting tips on every drink that they make, I'm sure a lot of them made a lot more money in US dollars than me. Not to mention, once they take that money and they take it back home, if the country they're from, if their currency is less valuable than the US dollar, then when they exchange it, they made even more money, relative to their currency. So that's why you see a lot of non-Americans working on cruise ships, because the money, even $500, which to me isn't very much, that's how much my camera was, or in one sitting, 500 may not seem like a lot, but to somebody in a different country where their currency is valued less than the dollar, that turns into a lot of money, So it's relative, and it's how you see it. My job, broadcast technician, My department's, if you like, $2,000 is kind of like where the line, I would say, is kind of the average I was getting. Other techs in the theater were making a little bit more, but then again, they worked longer hours, so it didn't bother me that they made a little bit more money. They were working more. Singers and dancers, the entertainers, make more, and the way I see that is they're the reason the guests come. The guests come for the entertainment, and it is a much more difficult process to go through the auditions, to become a singer, to become a dancer, or as a musician. You spend these years rehearsing and practicing and learning how to read, and it's these very specific skills that so when you get on board, they pay you a little bit more because you've earned it. You know what I mean? But it's not so much more that there's this rage and jealousy. I mean, they earn it, and if you're working as a bartender and you would rather make more money and be a musician, if you put in the hours and the trials and tribulations of being a musician, and then you get there, then you've earned it. So it's the entertainers make more money, and then on top of that, like the singers, who are making a little bit more, they also get their own cabin. So it's not just the benefits of money. It's not just about the money, but with great skills, you obtain better salaries and better benefits. If you're on the ship for a while, and several contracts, and you work your way up into management, and you get promoted and stuff, you'll get raises. Obviously, with new positions, you get more money, but you also get your own cabin, or better accommodations, or shorter contracts, or stuff like this, and a lot of, for me, when I was working on the cruise ship, I started saying, I don't want more money. I would like to have my own cabin. I think having my own cabin would be I would rather take that over a raise, or I'd rather take that. I would even take a little bit of a pay cut if I could have someone give me my own cabin, just to have a little more privacy, just to, or maybe have like a cabin with a window, so certain things that you don't necessarily think about, but it's not just about money. For some people, it is just about money. If you have a family back home to support, and you're strictly sending money home just to support your family, it's all about the money. And those are the crew members who are working, and they're not going to get off the ship, and they're not going to go party. They're not going to go off in Cancun, and take $20 shots. They're working. They're there for the job. And so someone like me, on paper, my salary wasn't as much as it could be on land, but I kind of looked at it as, like, when I was getting paid, what I started telling myself was, okay, here's how much I'm getting paid, but I'm going to pretend that I have added rent, I've added a car payment, I've added car insurance, I've added all these other expenses, and then I've paid them. And so I'm like, okay, after I've paid all my bills, I have, $1,600. It's pretty good. If I was, on land, if you can save $1,700 after all of your bills, including food, it's not bad. So that's how you save. That's how you save money. You just have to try. You just gotta try. The things that happen, though, it's also very easy to spend your money. Saving is easy if you just don't spend, but some people are difficult spending or saving money. I dated a girl who was from England, and the British pound is valued more than the US dollar. So after she got paid, when she exchanged the US currency into the pound, she was actually making less. There were a lot of people I worked with who, not specifically people from England, but they would come on the ship with no intention on saving money, and they would spend all their money at the bars, and they would spend all their money off the ship, going on excursions, living it up, which is totally great. They were living like they were passengers. They were working on the ship, but they were living like they were on vacation, which is fine. They were having a great time, but after their 6 month or however long contract, they go home with no money. So, but they might plan on coming back the next time anyway. So if your goal isn't to save money and your goal is to spend it, there's plenty of places to spend it. We're going to some really, really great places. And you can do all the, as much time off as you can get. If you can go do excursions and go explore and buy stuff and send stuff back home and drink and buy watches and all these things, of course you could spend money quickly. If it's like people on vacation, they have all this money saved up, it's not hard to spend the money either. So for some people it is harder to save if that's what they want to do, because the temptations to buy things is definitely there. There's little nitpicky things too about money on cruise ships. If you want cash on the cruise ship, there is an ATM machine, but they charge you money every time you use it. Kind of like because you get paid on your card. So you put your pay card into the ATM and you can take money out of it after you've gotten paid, obviously. But they charge you every single time you use it to take money out, just like it's an ATM on land that's not the bank that you are a member of. So they charge you the transaction fee. And so it depends on how many times you go and get cash, they're taking some money. Before I started on the cruise ships, I spoke with a friend in Florida who had worked on ships before, and she told me I should get a specific credit card where there was no international fee for currency exchange. So if I take my American credit card to Europe and use it to buy something, I don't get an additional fee for the currency exchange from US to the euro. And I had that credit card for 2 years. It was $100 per year to keep it open. So I decided if I spend more than $100 in a year, or if I save more than $100 in transaction fees, which is not hard to do, if you're spending stuff on your card, then the card paid for itself. And I wasn't constantly trying to find cash, and I wasn't constantly, calculating every time I was getting charged with all these things, and because it was a freedom, because even if I went to just a coffee shop somewhere in Europe and used my credit card, all those little fees, they add up, and so it was a much easier experience for me just to not have to worry about the currency exchange fees. But there is a lot of money to be made. You just have to go about it in the right way. I do miss it now. For me, it was easy to save money. I wasn't spending money on food. I wasn't, and I wasn't buying a lot of stuff anyway because I'm on the ship, I'm working, so some of the stuff I would buy would be the experiences on, when I go off in port. I did the occasional excursion, or something. Like I swam with the dolphins once, and I went when I was in Portland, Maine. Me and some friends, we went on a boat to do lobster stuff. I definitely did some experiences, and I bought a lot of things. I bought jackets, and I bought gifts for family, and all the things you can expect to do. But I was aware of what I was spending, and I definitely came out on top after every contract. If I wanted to, though, I could have very easily spent all the money I made in a short amount of time. But like I said earlier, one of the reasons I got on the ship was because I did want to save money. I will say this, though. My first contract, the way I was able to make it work was because I had some money saved up in my bank account for 6 months. If you send money home from your pay card to your home bank, it's like $16 every time you transfer money from your cruise ship bank account to your home bank account. I said, well, I'm going to do that one time. I don't want to spend $16 every month for 6 months. That's just wasted money just to put money, just for the transaction into this fee. And so I had money I had saved up in my home bank account, so that when I was using my credit card in Europe, it was on automatic payment from my bank account back home. And then 6 months later, I put all the money I saved from the cruise ship, from my cruise ship pay card, into my bank account. So I did have to prepare for those 6 months of not having money in my bank account. I had a friend who played piano in the band, and they said that they literally got the cruise ship job, and they were running on empty, like $20 left in their bank account. They said if Norwegian Cruise Line hadn't paid for their ticket to the ship, they wouldn't have even been able to do it because they didn't have enough money at all to even start. He, most likely, was sending money home whenever he could to replenish his account, and those $16 transaction fees, as unfortunate as they are, his circumstance, he kind of had to do it. So for me, I was a little more fortunate that I was prepared, and I didn't have to worry about sending money home as quickly before my contract was over. And then after my first contract, I had that nice cushy amount of money saved from that first contract. So the second contract, I didn't even think about it. It's like, oh, auto pay. I kept my Netflix account on the whole time too. So without even using it. With $8 a month or whatever. I was grandfathered in, so I didn't want to lose that. But yeah, it's there's a lot of money to be made, and if you go about it the right way and you prepare for it, it's a great experience, a great opportunity, and a lot of fun. So just do your research and don't spend all your money on things you don't need.